The floating isles trembled beneath a sky painted with the rare and ominous light of the celestial convergence. Stars aligned in perfect symmetry, casting a silver-blue glow that bathed the cloud shepherd's sanctuary in an ethereal sheen. Elara stood at the edge of the highest ledge on her isle, her grey eyes reflecting the celestial dance above. Around her, the air buzzed with an electric charge that prickled her skin, a tangible sign that the ancient magic holding Velthar captive was weakening. Kalen stood close by, his tall frame steady against the rising wind. His silver-streaked hair whipped about his weather-beaten face, but his piercing blue eyes were fixed and calm. "This night," he said, voice low yet resolute, "is the moment the sky itself holds its breath. The seals that bind Velthar are forged from magic older than any kingdom. Yet even that power bends beneath the celestial forces. We must be ready," Elara nodded, swallowing the knot of fear tightening her throat. She had trained for months, learning to read the moods of the sentient clouds, to sense the subtle stirrings of elemental magic that whispered through the sky. But nothing in her lessons had fully prepared her for this raw, unfolding moment. Sylvie appeared beside her in a burst of wind, her wild copper hair glowing faintly in the starlight. "Ready or not," she said with a grin, "the storm comes, and if we hesitate, it will consume everything." The tempest cloud that housed Velthor loomed overhead, a living nightmare of swirling darkness and crackling lightning. The spirit's form was no longer a mere shadow trapped within. It pulsed with life, eyes glowing like twin storms of fury and sorrow. The ancient bindings that had kept it dormant were now threads unraveling in the face of the celestial alignment. A low rumble echoed through the floating isles, growing into a deafening roar as Velthor stirred. The very clouds seemed to recoil and shudder, their sentient forms flickering uneasily. Elara stepped forward, raising her hands as she summoned the cloud magic she had spent so long honing. She whispered to the winds, coaxing the restless clouds to shield their home, to stand as bulwarks against the rising tide of chaos. "Focus," Kalen urged, his voice cutting through the tempest's howl. "The storm spirit feeds on fear and disorder. Our strength lies in unity and control." Elara closed her eyes, drawing deep from the well of ancient magic that connected her to the sky. She felt the pulse of the clouds beneath her fingers, their moods shifting like waves. She reached out to Velthor, not with weapons or anger, but with understanding, seeking the fragile balance between creation and destruction. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the storm spirit's colossal form. Velthor's voice, a thunderous echo in Elara's mind, spoke of betrayal and longing, of a time when it guarded the skies before the continent shattered and rulers caged it out of fear. Sylvie's laughter rang out, wild and defiant, as she unleashed a torrent of wind and lightning magic. Her spells wove through the storm like threads of light, bolstering Elara's defenses and rallying the cloud shepherds to stand firm. "This is our storm," she shouted, "and we will not falter." The battle for the Sky Realm had begun. As the celestial convergence reached its zenith, Elara felt the ancient seals falter further. Velthor's power surged, the storm spirit partially free and thrashing against its bonds. The floating isles shuddered under the tempest's assault, clouds fracturing and reforming in a chaotic ballet. Elara's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and awe. She knew that this night would define the fate of the Sky Kingdoms. Her hands glowed with the magic of the clouds, her mind focused on the delicate thread of hope that still bound the realms together. "Hold fast," Kalen commanded, his voice a beacon of strength. "Together, we are the sky's shield." And as the storm raged on, Elara stepped boldly into the heart of the tempest, ready to face the storm spirit and the destiny that awaited her. The stars above flickered uncertainly, as if watching, waiting for the next move in a game as old as time itself. The sky above the floating islands churned with an unnatural fury, thick clouds roiling like a cauldron on the verge of boiling over. Ilara stood at the edge of the highest cliff on her home isle, the wind tugging fiercely at her cloak and whipping her dark hair into wild tangles. Her bright grey eyes scanned the expanding tempest, a storm unlike any she had ever witnessed. It was no mere weather phenomenon. It was Veltha, the storm spirit, unleashed. For months, signs had pointed toward this moment. Strange cloud behaviors, whispered warnings in the wind, and the mounting tension among the sky kingdoms all converged here. Now, as thunder rolled like the growl of a sleeping giant awakening, Ilara felt the weight of what was to come press upon her chest. Her heart pounded not just with fear, but with an unyielding determination. She could not let this destruction come to pass. Behind her, the low rumble of voices grew louder as cloud shepherds from neighboring isles hurried to the cliffside. Kaelan was among them, his tall, weather-beaten frame cutting a steady presence through the growing chaos. His silver-streaked hair flew wildly in the wind, and his piercing blue eyes reflected the flickers of lightning illuminating the storm. "Ilara," he called, his voice firm but urgent. "The storm is breaking free. We must act now to protect the isles." Ilara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I know," she said softly, her gaze locked on the heart of the tempest. Veltha is no longer contained. As the storm spirit took form, the clouds twisted and surged, coalescing into a towering figure of dark tempest, crackling with lightning and thunder that shook the very air. Veltha's eyes burned like twin bolts of living lightning, shifting and flickering with primal fury and ancient pain. The spirit's presence was overwhelming, a force of nature both magnificent and terrifying. Sylvie appeared beside Ilara, her copper hair a fiery contrast against the dark sky. Her electric green eyes blazed with fierce resolve. "We can't fight this with brute force alone," she said, voice sharp as the lightning she commanded. "We must work with the storm, not against it." Ilara met her gaze, grateful for the elemental mage's unwavering confidence. Together, they began to weave their magic into the charged air. Sylvie summoned arcs of lightning, threading them carefully through the roiling clouds to fortify their defenses and bolster Ilara's connection to the sentient clouds around them. Kaelan barked orders, directing the cloud shepherds to create barriers of mist and vapor, their combined efforts forming fragile shields against the tempest's onslaught. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and rain, the electric hum of elemental power vibrating through every breath. Despite the chaos, a strange calm settled within Ilara. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses to the clouds she had tended for so long. They responded to her touch, their moods shifting from panic to tentative trust. It was this bond that gave her hope. The storm spirit's massive form surged closer, lightning crackling along its swirling edges. Ilara stepped forward, raising her hands as she murmured the ancient words Kaelan had taught her, words of binding and balance, spoken in the old tongue of the Sky Kingdoms. The roar of the tempest dimmed for a heartbeat, as Veltha's lightning eyes fixed on hers, a silent exchange passing between them. In that moment, Ilara glimpsed the spirit's true nature, not merely a harbinger of destruction, but a guardian twisted by betrayal and imprisonment. The duality of creation and ruin danced within Velthor's stormy form. The wind tugged harder, the clouds thickened, and the storm spirit unleashed a deafening roar that echoed across the shattered continent below. Yet Ilara stood firm, her voice rising above the tempest as she extended her magic, weaving a tether of trust and containment. "Velthar," she whispered, "I do not seek to destroy you, but to restore balance. Together, we can protect this realm." For a heartbeat that stretched into eternity, the storm spirit hesitated. The crackling lightning softened, and the swirling clouds pulsed with a strange, rhythmic calm. Then, with a mighty gust that bent the trees and sent birds scattering into the sky, the tempest began to wane. The floating islands trembled but held their ground, cushioned by the careful magic of their shepherds. Ilaros' knees buckled, exhaustion and relief flooding her senses. Kaelin rushed to her side, steadying her with a weathered hand. Sylvie grinned fiercely, her wild hair glowing faintly in the dying storm's light. "You did it," Kaelin said, pride and wonder in his voice. "You bound the storm spirit." Elara nodded, eyes still fixed on the dissipating tempest. "It's only the beginning. The Sky Realm's balance is fragile, but we have a chance to heal it now." As the clouds began to settle, the first rays of dawn pierced the retreating darkness, bathing the floating isles in a golden light. The sky's embrace felt renewed, fragile but hopeful. Yet beneath her relief, Elara knew the road ahead was long. The storm spirit's fury was quelled but not extinguished, and the political storms among the Sky Kingdoms would soon demand her strength and wisdom. She inhaled deeply, feeling the cool morning breeze mingle with the lingering scent of rain and lightning. The sky was vast, filled with endless possibility, and Elara was ready to face whatever came next. But as the sun climbed higher, a faint rumble echoed from the shattered continent below, a reminder that the past's shadows still lingered, waiting to rise again. And so the tempest had been unleashed, but the true storm was only beginning. The sky darkened with an unnatural heaviness as Velthar, the storm spirit, unleashed its full fury upon the floating isles. Thunder rumbled like the roar of ancient beasts, and jagged bolts of lightning cracked through the swirling tempest that cloaked the realm in chaotic shadow. Elara stood firm on the edge of the highest isle, her eyes reflecting the turbulent skies above bright grey, mirroring the sentient clouds she had nurtured since her apprenticeship began. Around her, the air buzzed with electric tension, charged with both fear and determination. "Hold the line." Kellen's voice cut sharply through the howling wind, steady and commanding. His tall, weather-beaten frame was silhouetted against the storm, silver-streaked hair whipping wildly as he raised his staff, conjuring gusts of wind that danced around him like protective serpents. Beside him, Sylvie's wild copper hair was a fiery contrast to the dark sky. Her electric green eyes flashed as she wove lightning magic, sending arcs of crackling energy that intertwined with the clouds, illuminating the tempest with eerie light. Elara closed her eyes briefly, feeling the pulse of the sentient clouds that curled and shifted around her. They responded to her touch and will, their moods blending with her own, a symphony of whispers and currents. Slowly, she raised her hands, palms open towards the sky, and wove her magic with careful precision. The clouds answered, swirling faster, condensing into shimmering silver strands that shimmered with an ethereal glow. They gathered, coalescing into a radiant barrier that stretched across the horizon like a fragile but unyielding shield. The storm spirit howled in fury, its tempestuous form writhing with chaotic energy. Lightning eyes pierced the cloud shield, sending violent bolts that clashed against Ilara's creation with explosive force. The floating isles trembled under the onslaught, rocks and debris tossed by the gale. Yet, the shield held a testament to Ilara's growing mastery and the bonds she had forged with her allies and the elemental forces around her. Elara, now Kaelin, shouted, voice strained but resolute. Together, The trio focused their combined magic into the heart of the storm. Sylvie's lightning intertwined with Kellen's wind currents and Ilaros' cloud magic, creating a vortex that sought to contain the raging spirit. At the eye of the storm, amidst the swirling chaos, Ilara's heart pounded with a mix of fear and hope. She reached out with her voice, steady and clear, to the primal essence of Velthar. "I don't seek to destroy you," she called into the tempest, her words threading through the thunder and lightning like a fragile lifeline. "I seek to understand, to bind us together, not tear us apart." For a moment, the storm stilled, the tempest's wild form flickering uncertainly. A deep, resonant voice echoed in her mind, ancient and raw, filled with pain and fury, but also a flicker of longing. The collision of their wills sent a blinding flash of light rippling through the clouds, momentarily silencing the tempest's rage. As the light dimmed, Ilara opened her eyes and saw Velthar's form. Less menacing and more raw power, a force of nature yearning for balance. The battle was far from over, but this moment marked a turning point. The storm's destructive force was tempered by the fragile hope of understanding, and Ilara's resolve burned brighter than ever. The battle of clouds and lightning had tested every ounce of her skill and courage. But it was the bond she nurtured between shepherd and cloud, between spirit and mortal, that would determine the fate of the Sky Kingdoms. As the storm began to wane, Ilara knew the true challenge was just beginning. She must hold fast to the hope that even the wildest tempest could be a guardian, not a destroyer. The wind whispered around her, carrying the scent of rain and renewal. The floating isles trembled but stood firm, and high above, the skies held their breath, waiting for the dawn of a new era. "We've only just begun," Ilara murmured, her voice steady despite the storm's fading fury. "But together, we will see this through." The clouds above shimmered softly, a silent promise of the power yet to come. A power born from balance, courage, and the unyielding hope of a young cloud shepherd who dared to dream beyond the storm. The heart of the storm was not where one expected it to be. Ilara stood at the very center of the tempest, the swirling winds howling around her in a furious cacophony that threatened to tear the floating isle apart. Her breath came steady despite the violent air, her gaze locked onto the shifting form before her, a tempest of dark clouds, crackling veins of lightning, and eyes that burned with an ancient fury. Velthar, the storm spirit bound by forgotten magic and ancient betrayal, loomed large, a force of nature unleashed in all its terrifying majesty. Around her, the skies churned with wild abandon. The floating islands trembled beneath the storm's rage, and the sentient clouds she had nurtured since childhood scattered like frightened children. Yet Ilara did not falter. Instead, she lifted her hands, her fingers trembling with both fear and resolve, and let the winds whisper through her hair. "Velthar," she called softly, her voice barely rising above the roar. "I know your pain. I know the chains that bind you. But this destruction will only bring ruin to us all." The storm spirit's eyes flared brighter, lightning crackling in a furious response. For a moment, the tempest seemed to answer with thunderous rage, shaking the very air with its fury. But then, beneath the chaos, a faint pulsar rhythm of something ancient and sorrowful resonated with Ilara's heartbeat. She closed her eyes, reaching deeper, drawing upon the lost magic buried within the shattered countenance, relics, and the sentient clouds entwined with her spirit. A shiver ran down her spine as the storm's form began to shift. The menacing black clouds softened, revealing flickers of glowing blue light beneath, like the fragile glow of dawn struggling against the night. Velthar's primal nature, wild, chaotic, yet yearning surfaced in these moments of vulnerability. Alara's heart ached with empathy and understanding. "You are not just destruction," she whispered. "You are also creation, a force that gave life to these skies long before we were born." From the edge of the tempest, Kalen and Sylvie watched with unwavering focus. Kellen's weather-beaten face was set with grim determination. His silver-streaked hair whipped by the gale as he channeled steady currents of elemental energy to bolster Ilara's connection. Sylvie, her wild copper hair illuminated by flashes of lightning, twirled her fingers, weaving threads of wind and spark to support the fragile bond forming between shepherd and storm. "Hold steady, Ilara," Kalen shouted, his voice cutting through the tempest. "The spirit listens." Ilara nodded, her voice a thread of calm in the chaos. "Veltha, I offer you a choice not to destroy, but to protect. To become a guardian of these skies, as you once were before betrayal and fear shackled your power. Let us restore balance together." Slowly, the thunderous roar subsided. The furious winds softened into a gentle breeze that caressed Elara's skin like a mother's touch. Veltha's swirling form contracted and expanded, the lightning eyes dimming to a serene glow. The storm spirit's voice echoed in Ilara's mind, not a voice of anger, but one of ancient wisdom and cautious hope. "You see beyond the tempest," Velthar said, the words a rumble of distant thunder. "You understand the duality within Mytha, fury, and the calm, the destruction and the creation. Your heart is true, young shepherd. I will heed your call." The skies began to clear. Golden light pierced the retreating clouds, bathing the floating islands in a warm, ethereal glow. The sentient clouds returned, swirling gently around Ilara, as if in quiet applause. The fragile balance of the sky realm was not restored by force, but by understanding, a testament to the power of empathy and the resilience of hope. As the last echoes of the storm faded, Ilara looked toward her allies. Kellen's piercing blue eyes shone with pride, and Sylvie's mischievous grin held a new respect. Together, they had crossed the threshold from destruction to harmony. Yet Ilara knew this was only the beginning. The storm spirit's transformation marked a new chapter, one filled with challenges and the promise of renewal. With Velthor as a guardian rather than a threat, the Sky Kingdoms could begin to heal. But the delicate balance between creation and destruction would demand vigilance and courage from all who called the skies home. Taking a deep breath, Ilara raised her voice in a clear, steady vow. "I will protect these skies with all the strength and magic I possess. Together, we will forge a future where clouds and spirits alike can soar in harmony." The wind answered with a soft whisper, carrying her words across the floating isles, a promise carried on the breath of the sky itself. And so, beneath the clearing heavens, the heart of the storm beat anew, not as a harbinger of ruin, but as a beacon of hope. The sky tore open in a cacophony of thunder and lightning, a wild tempest swirling above the floating islands like a colossal, furious beast unleashed. At the storms I stood Ilara, her dark hair whipping round her face, her grey eyes steady and bright despite the chaos. The air was thick with charged electricity, each crackle a song of nature's power, raw and untamed. The very clouds seemed alive, their moods shifting with the turbulent winds, their whispering voices rising to a crescendo as the storm spirit, Velthar, manifested fully in his tempestuous glory. Velthar's form was a maelstrom of swirling dark clouds, jagged streaks of lightning dancing like furious serpents within his shifting shape. His eyes, twin bolts of crackling light, bore into Ilara with a mixture of rage, pain, and an ancient wariness. This was not a mindless force of destruction, but a primal elemental, bound unjustly long ago, yearning for freedom yet burdened by the chaos that freedom might wreak. Elara's heart pounded fiercely, not from fear but from a fierce determination. This was the moment she had prepared for, the culmination of a journey fraught with doubt and danger. She stepped forward into the storm's eye, her voice a calm beacon amid the roaring winds. "Veltha," she called, her tone both commanding and gentle. "I do not seek to destroy you. I seek to understand, to find balance between your fury and the life of these skies." The storm spirit's eyes flashed, and the tempest roared louder, as if testing her resolve. Yet beneath the thunder, a subtle shift rippled through the clouds. Elara felt the connection she had nurtured with the sentient clouds respond to her will, their swirling forms calming in solidarity. At her side, Kaelin and Sylvie moved with practiced grace, their hands weaving ancient sigils in the air. Kaelin's weather-beaten face was set in stoic concentration, his piercing blue eyes reflecting the storm's light. Sylvie's wild copper hair seemed to spark with the electric magic she channeled, her green eyes shining with fierce hope. Together, they invoked the lost elemental magic's threads of blue and silver light spiraling from their fingertips, weaving a luminous binding thread that wrapped around Velthor and the floating isles alike. The storm spirit's furious form began to shift. The jagged streaks of lightning softened into gentle glows. The swirling darkness thinned to reveal a majestic silhouette, regal and powerful yet calm. The clouds surrounding the islands responded in kind, their voices harmonizing into a soothing murmur, their hues shimmering with iridescent peace. The once violent tempest now felt like a guardian's embrace, protecting rather than threatening. Elara stepped forward once more, her voice steady and clear. "Let this be our pact, your power bound not by chains of fear, but by trust and purpose. Together we will guard these skies, protect the fragile balance, and nurture the magic that sustains us all." Veltha's eyes softened, a silent acceptance passing between spirit and shepherd. The storm's fury dissipated, replaced by a serene calm that settled over the floating islands like a blessing. The first rays of dawn broke through the dissipating clouds, painting the horizon with warm golds and gentle pinks. Elara's gaze lifted to the rising sun, feeling the weight of her new responsibility anchor within her chest, tempered by a spark of profound hope. Kaelin placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You have done what many feared impossible, Elara. You have transformed destruction into protection." Sylvie smiled, her electric green eyes alight with renewed purpose. "And this is only the beginning. The magic we rekindle, the alliances we forge, these will shape the future of the Sky Kingdoms." Elara nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of solemnity and optimism. The balance between creation and destruction was fragile, a delicate dance that required constant vigilance. But with Velthor as guardian and her allies by her side, she was ready to lead the Sky Realm into a new era. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the floating isles with its golden light, the clouds whispered their ancient songs once more, a melody of resilience, unity, and hope. And beneath their song, Elara felt the promise of tomorrow unfold, vast and boundless as the sky itself. But even as the skies healed, subtle currents of change stirred in distant corners of the realm. New challenges awaited, mysteries yet unveiled. The journey was far from over. For Elara, the true test of leadership and courage was just beginning, and the pact she forged today would be the foundation upon which the future was built. With a deep breath, she turned toward the path ahead, ready to face whatever storms might yet come, knowing that within the heart of every tempest lies the seed of renewal. The sky's embrace was hers to protect, and she would not falter.